She'll find us. Good afternoon, everyone. The board is just returning from a closed executive session, and now we'll get started on the workshop portion of our meetings. Would the clerk take the roll, please?
District 1, Barbara McQuinn. Here. District 2, Chuck Shaw. Here. District 3, Karen Brill. Here. District 4, Erica Whitfield. Here. District 5, Frank Barbieri.
Here.
District 6, Marcia Andrews.
Here.
District 7, Deborah Robinson.
All right, and the record should reflect that also the superintendent is here with us today. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Superintendent, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Our first workshop for the day is the ABC Boundary Study Workshop. I'd like to introduce Ms. Chris Garrison, who will introduce the rest of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fenoy. Staff is flanked by 4 very hardworking members of your Advisory Boundary Committee, who I will introduce in turn. To my far right is long-serving Chair Hyacinthia Becton, who is a superintendent's appointee. Again, next to her, to my immediate left, is Virginia Ferris, also very long-serving and a superintendent appointee to the committee. And then on my far right is Frank Hayden, who has joined us again beginning last year. He was a former member, long-serving member, and we're very pleased to have him back on the committee. And Frank is an NAACP appointee. And then sitting to his left is also another long-serving member, Roseanne Brown, who is Dr. Robinson's appointee. So we very much appreciate all the hard work that these members have given us over the years. With that, I'm going to ask Jason to give us an abbreviated presentation. I know you're running late on time, but of course we will be available to answer any questions if you want to take a deeper dive.
Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Fenoy, school board members. We will commence. All right, so the ABC Review 2 boundary studies for the 2019-20 boundary cycle, which included study SH1, Highland and South Grade Elementary Relief, and studies M1 and J1 were sort of one study. It affected a future new development in which there currently are no students, moving a future residential development into the Melaleuca and John A. Leonard High School attendance zones. We'll begin with study SH1, Highland and South Grade Relief. The ABC recommended this study to the superintendent by an 11-0 vote. Moves a portion of Highland SAC 201, the northern portion to Palm Springs Elementary School, the southern portion of the SAC to Barton Elementary School. Then it shifts the southern portion of South Grade SAC 214B to Barton Elementary School. And that proposal had existing 4th graders that were entering 5th grade for the 1920 school year, and their current K through 3 siblings would have the option to remain for next school year. So why was this brought forward? Highland is currently the district's 2nd most overcrowded elementary school at 100, the sort of a pale yellow color here, at 114% utilization, 152 students over its design capacity. The school is projected to further increase its enrollment during the next 5 years, with projected utilization eclipsing 120% in the next few years. There's also future residential development coming in the near future in the Highland Zone, about 288 multifamily units. So the proposal, as you can see with the blue arrow, this is SAC 201, shifts for next school year about 114. Now this assumes 4th graders and their K through 3 siblings remain at their current 18, 19 schools. Shifts about 114 students projected to Palm Springs, and then 101 students to Barton. We did explore shifting this entire SAC to Palm Springs, as Palm Springs is actually closer to this area than Highland, but there are far too many students that reside in this entire SAC to do that. It would have overcrowded Palm Springs Elementary within a year. So we looked at a decent geographic dividing line, which was the L11 Canal, and henceforth it was nearly an even split. So the northern portion of Palm Springs, southern portion Barton. And as you can see, Barton is currently at 61% utilization, about 543 students under capacity, so there's plenty of space at the school. And Palm Springs is about 84% utilization at 166 students under their capacity. So there's sufficient space to shift the students to those two schools. For South Grade is the district's fourth most overcrowded elementary school at 108% of available utilization, which takes into account their 4 concretables. Not counting those concretables, they'd be at about 121% of fish. But with the concretables, they're at 108% utilization. Their enrollment is also projected to increase over the next 5 years, with a projected utilization eclipsing 110% within the next few years. So we decided, let's relieve these two schools at the same time, and by utilizing Barton and Palm Springs. So for South Grade, again, the 214B is a lot of students in that SAC, so we couldn't shift the entire SAC. So we're shifting the southern portion at 3rd Avenue South, which for next year would be about 175 students shifting to Barton Elementary. Now, this proposal better balances enrollment at the 4 schools, decreasing enrollment at Highland and South Grade, and increasing enrollment at Palm Springs and Barton. So without the change, you can see Highland 115 next year. With the change, 95. South Grade would be almost 110. As I mentioned, next year with that change, they'd be 87% of their available capacity. And then Barton, instead of 60% utilization next year, would increase to 79%. Palm Springs, instead of 82, would increase to 93. So we better balance, and you can see the data for the next 3 years after that. We better balance enrollment at those 3 area schools. Now, during the cycle, one concern brought forward by parents in the proposed change areas was the continuity of the Spanish dual language program that currently exists at Highland and South Grade and currently does not exist at Barton or Palm Springs. So the parents have requested that their children be permitted to remain at those dual language programs currently in place. They're in-house, they're not choice, at South Grade and Highland. So we explored that, and if the parents, by providing that option, the dual language option, and allowing the students to remain, it would increase enrollment at South Grade, understandably, and Highland and South Grade until those dual language students eventually phase out over the years, because you've got them currently, that would be the current K through 3 dual language students, which would then matriculate, they'd be 1st and 4th graders next year, with the assumption if they're already a 4th grader, regardless of their dual language, they can remain as it is. So allowing the K through 3 current dual language students to remain would have the following effect. So instead of Highland at 95%, it would increase their utilization to 102%, and then the following year down to 98, and then down to 97 instead of 95, 95, 92, 93. So it has that effect at South Grade, not to the same degree because they do have those concretables. They would be 92 available, 92 available, 93 available. And then you would just have decreases at Barton and Palm Springs for the next 3 years until, again, those dual language students phase out. And then you'd see more of a decrease at Highland and South Grade, and then those numbers would gradually increase expectedly at Barton and Palm Springs. We will move on to the next study, which is...
Mr. Lake, hold on a minute,
Sure.
see if the board members have any questions so far. Mrs. Whitfield?
So one of the things that you said that I think deserves repeating for this area is the importance of developing a dual language program at Barton, because the children are not changing, just going to a new location. And I think these dual language programs are very successful and I think really needed. This is my community where I live. So the other thing that I think would be really valuable, just to put out there for Mr. Licata, who's sitting in the back, I think would be, hi. I think one thing about Lake Worth that seems to have been skipped over through all of our choice programs is that none of the schools really have an arts focus, and Lake Worth as a community has really been pushing the arts as really what they're doing and working towards. So this might be something that we think about for Barton to really make the families feel like they're getting something special by going to this school, because I know we are overcrowded at two of the schools. One is right on target for the elementary schools, and then the last one, Barton, is under enrolled. So I think, really thinking about what it is that we can make Barton more attractive would be, I think, a great thing to do as we're moving these children. Thank you.
Dr. Robinson?
So along the same line, I think that based on prior meetings, I think that Barton is working on developing not only dual language Spanish, but dual language Haitian Creole. But if I heard you correctly, South Grade and Highland are not choice dual language programs, right? They're in-house only,
Correct.
right? Okay. So we would have to develop both of those dual language programs at Barton so that the children would be able to take advantage of that. And I love adding arts ideas, so, okay.
And Mr. Oswald behind me is nodding.
Let me ask you a question. The one that you mentioned, the split was at 3rd Street.
Right.
The other boundary changes I've seen in the past, usually the split is on a major thoroughfare where there's not so is 3rd Street a situation where kids on one side of the street will go to one school and their friends on the other side of the street will go to another school? Is that what we have in that split?
It could be the neighborhood even flows further south into 214A. So you may have, there unfortunately wasn't just a major thoroughfare with a sufficient number of students. So, I mean, it occurs across the district. You may have that situation occur.
Is there a way to modify that in any way so we don't split up kids on the same street?
It's the SAC that's furthest away from South Grade. It's just, South Grade has a small attendance zone, so the options are limited, especially with looking at the numbers that were necessary to relieve the school in the future. I mean, we looked for the more major of the roads in that community, and 3rd Avenue South was deemed the more, the best.
So is
Boundary at
that
that
area going to be a bus, the transportation? Now, is there going to be 2 different buses going down that street, picking up kids, one going to one school and one going to the other?
From what I understand, there aren't any students that live in the South Grade zone that attend South Grade are on a bus because they're all within the 2-mile walk zone. That's based on my understanding from the ABC meetings. Okay. And then Barton is also within the 2-mile walk zone of that area. So I don't believe there will be bus required, but we can definitely look into that. But I don't believe there isn't transportation now. I don't believe we're going to need transportation.
Okay, so in the future, when the boundary committee's looking at these situations, can you kind of be, wary about splitting up a street where there's kids on each side of the street?
Absolutely.
Different places?
We are, yes. That's one of the things we look at. And it wasn't a discernible neighborhood where you've got that separate named neighborhood. I mean, it was a larger neighborhood that, as I mentioned, actually flows south down into the south of that 214A. So it's just a matter of so there's neighbors down there that actually attend Barton that that line was drawn currently at 6th Avenue South. So even within that neighborhood, you have students attending Barton. You're just going to have, it's just that line is just going to be moves further north. There's have additional students attending Barton.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Barbieri. Ms. Burrell, then Mrs. Whitfield.
Thank you, and I apologize if I missed you saying anything about this, but do the children at Barton and South Grade feed into the same middle school, or is this going to have any impact on the feeder pattern for middle school with the changes that we're proposing?
No, it didn't have an impact on the feeder. We did look at that. That's in the study. Yeah, they both feed to Lake Worth Middle, so it won't affect.
Thank you.
Mrs. Whitfield.
I just wanted to correct Jason, because if I don't, I'll get yelled at by my neighbors. There is a very distinct neighborhood that is being split by that 3rd Avenue South. It's called the Downtown Jewel area, and so the top 3 streets are part of it, and then all the streets underneath of it that go down are definitely part of it. So that it is a neighborhood that identifies itself as one unit there. That being said, I don't think it's a terrible thing because North Grade is not overcrowded. So I think putting some of the students to go to North Grade, I think would be fine. There's also, what road is that? That is the north-south one that's between A Street and Dixie Highway, that's splitting that neighborhood between Highland and North Grade. What one is that? Can you tell? Do you know? The 403 to 203 split? And the 205 to 203 split? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Splitting North Grade and Highland.
It's North Grade and Highland, yeah. I was just curious what
Maybe the
street that was, because those are very distinct neighborhoods too. Just as you said that, it made me think about it. I think
It could be the railroad. I see the FEC Railroad labeled on there. It might be the railroad. But
Oh, okay.
we can double check.
No, I'm just curious. I think,
It's,
I mean, for
go
future
further
reference, when
north?
we do this, we can look at the neighborhood splits within the community, because they have
so it could
very
be,
strong neighborhood associations.
yeah, it could be Dixie, the railroad, and maybe Dixie Highway also right along, that runs along. So it's looking like Dixie and/or the FEC Railroad.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Dr. Robinson?
So I'm reading the faces of the ABC members. So I would ask, I know we might be tight on time, but can you just give the board and community maybe a 30-second on the 25 million things that ABC considers before they come out with these recommendations? Because I know that they look at all of those things and much more than we could imagine, it seems. Mr. Superintendent, is that all right?
Yes, that's fine.
25 million? Well, we won't do 25 million tonight. One of the things, good evening. I've been made to say I'm Hyacinthia Beckton, and I am a member of the ABC committee, and I've been there for some time. To ease your mind, one of the things we appreciate in the fact that the superintendent is forwarding to you the recommendation that has come from the committee. But the other thing is that there's conversation between the board members about what else you can do. Because we say to the community, when we finish with these deliberations, our issues are capacity. And we think that we do a very good job as it relates to that. However, there are so many other variables. You're talking about one of them. Dual language is one. How these neighborhoods are split is another. And it's wonderful that you have the capacity to make those types of changes and variations. But when you look at some of these color schemes, some of those we could deal with and others we couldn't. Please, the jagged lines, that's the ABC is doing. The solid colors, that's what we found when we started this process. I don't know if that helps as you further deliberate, but you will always see some things that need to be tweaked, and your communities appreciate the fact that you are looking at that, and you will continue to be about the business of representing them in a very, very serious and significant way. I thank you, and I'm certain that your communities thank you.
Mrs. Whitfield?
I just have to say, one of the things that has created this problem is because the schools are so popular. And that's a huge, wonderful thing. I would like to end this on a positive note that Highland and South Grade have become so popular that they're overcrowded. That's a wonderful thing. The principals are amazing. The programs are amazing. This is what we want our schools to do, is that people go to their local school. So I'm proud of them. I really am. And I just want to say, great job by the principals, because people love you and they want to be there. So excellent job. And I don't want that to be lost in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can move on to the next one. Yes?
Okay, studies M1 and J1 consolidate the future residential development, which will be named Solsera. The ABC recommended this study 10-1 studies. This is actually, we consider it's 2 studies because it's an elementary and high school, but we more considered that 1 study as it was brought forward. 10-1, this is a future development that will contain 109 single-family units. It's located just south of Southern Boulevard, and why it's unique is because it's split. Jog Road will split this future development, which you don't see that major road splitting a development that often, but this will be split at Jog Road, with 53 units being contained in the western portion west of Jog Road and 56 units east of Jog Road. The study west of Jog Road, the zone is Pine Jog, Palm Beach Central, and east of Jog Road, the zone is Melaleuca Elementary and John I. Leonard. So we looked at the utilization, the projections, the capacity of those schools, feeder patterns, and determined, based on the available utilization, the projected utilization, that we were going to go ahead and propose to consolidate that entire, it's a smaller development, that future development. Again, I want to reiterate, there are no current students residing there. The first students are anticipated to reside in the development for next school year. But the study will consolidate the entire development into the Melaleuca and John I. Leonard High School zones. The middle school is not affected. It's Okeechobee, regardless of which side of Jog Road. This area may be impacted by the future setting of OOO boundaries. That's right in that central corridor where we're in need of all that relief, Palm Beach Central, John I. Leonard, and the schools all within that central area that will be relieved when OOO is constructed in the near future. So things could change when the zones are set for OOO. This is the elementary portion. There's highlighted in red is where the future development will be located. The arrows showing the shift. In green is the Pine Jog zone, and blue is the Melaleuca zone. So both schools are located east of Jog Road. So regardless if it was Pine Jog or Melaleuca, the students are still going east of Jog Road. And then for the high school, there's a development. It's just a more zoomed out view because the high school zones are larger, but that would be the area shifted. The area from green is Palm Beach Central to John I. Leonard is the proposal, and that would move the entire development into singular elementary and high school zones. This was the lone dissenting ABC vote was of the opinion that with new high school OOO opening in the near future and associated wide-scale high school attendance zone changes, that this area be best left alone until the OOO attendance zone is established. So that was the concern of the lone dissenting ABC vote.
Mrs. Burrow?
Thank you. And to the superintendent, I hope that we will make sure that we communicate with the developer which schools the children are going to be zoned for in advance, because I'm sure the committee remembers Lyons Road. We had the attorney for the developer coming in here and upset, and I've gone into new developments and found them advertising the wrong schools. And even though I implore the developers and realtors, do not sell a house based on the schools they're zoned for, it continues to happen all the time. So we do need to make sure that we take a proactive approach and let the developer know, so that when we go in there, we don't find their marketing materials saying that they're going somewhere else. Thank you.
And we have communicated with the developer throughout this process to let them know of all the meetings and.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we're through, but before you leave, I just want to, the Boundary Committee is a special committee because I've appointed to that committee, and usually people get burned out after 2 years because you take all the heat for us, so because you make the hard decisions, and then, we're kind of behind a bulletproof dais up here. So, you guys are out there with the folks. So I just want to, on behalf of the board, thank you, especially you two that have been there forever, because it takes the really thick skin to put up with all of that you put up with on it, because there's nothing more important than a parent about where their kid's going to go to school. And when you start messing with that, I mean, I just went through that at Calusa, so I know how painful it is, and it can get bloody. So thank you very much for the hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Dr. Fenoy, I failed to do something at the beginning, if I could. I would like to introduce a new member of our team, Patrick Sipple. He's our new demographer, and we stole him from Broward County, where we also stole Mr. Link from a number of years ago. So we're glad to have him on our team. Thank you.
Thank you.
As the team transitions and the Deputy Superintendent Keith Oswald and his team makes it to the position. Oh, we have speakers? Okay, never mind. I'm wrong.